Welcome to Twin Talk. This is Joy, and I'm here with my sister Angie. And today we're going to do kind of like what we did last time. We're just well, no, we did book recommendations last time, didn't we? We're just going to talk about some books that a book that I recently read, and Angie's going to talk about a book that she recently read, and just kind of tell if we liked it or didn't like it, if we recommend it, if we didn't. So I'm going to let Angie go first and tell us about the book that you recently read.
Okay, so I recently listened to The Residence on Audible. Have you had a
No,
chance to
I have
listen
not
to
had
it?
a chance to listen to it yet.
Okay, so The Residence is by Kate Anderson Brower, and it was narrated by Karen White. And just this is just interesting to me. It's got 4 stars.
Okay.
I'll talk about why that's interesting to me in just a little while.
Right.
But anyway, it's just real quickly. It's the summary says it's a remarkable history with elements of both in the President's Secret Service and the Butler. The Residence offers an intimate account of the service staff of the White House from the Kennedys to the Obamas. America's first families are unknowable in many ways. No one has insight into their true character like the people who serve their meals and make their beds every day. Full of stories and details, by turns dramatic, humorous, and heartwarming, The Residence reveals daily life in the White House as it is really lived through the voices of the maids, butlers, cooks, florists, doormen, engineers, and others who tend to the needs of the president and the first family.
Okay, so my first question before we even start talking about
Okay.
it. To be an employee at the White House, you have to have really high character. Don't they have to sign all these, like, legal contracts saying that they won't talk to people or reveal personal things?
Yes.
So how are they writing these books if they've signed all these contracts?
That's a good question. So everyone that she interviewed, and then I have to say this, it's been a while since I listened to this, but I want to say that they were all retired, and I want to say that there is maybe
Like a clause.
there's a legal term for it that after so many years you can
Okay.
there's a certain period of time you can't speak, but I think after a certain after that time expires, I think it's okay, and even then I think there's still certain things you probably can't say,
Right.
but
So legally they can say a few things once this clause is run out
yes,
or whatever
yeah,
it
there's
is.
there's a certain time period that's written into these contracts, and I think once that time is elapsed, I think then they can speak freely.
Okay, sounds good to me.
And I may have that completely wrong. That's just how I remember it. That's a great question, though. But anyway, of course, I was really excited when I saw this. I thought, oh, this is going to be so interesting. And I'm not, and it
You
was.
get all the juicy tidbits
Yes,
about the first families.
I'm all about. I want to know, hey, what's going on now? What was the Obama saying back there? But honestly, this is my biggest beef with this. This could have been the best book. It could have been so good, and there was so many interesting things in it. But it was the way it was crafted. It drove me nuts. Okay, so like, so this is how I would have done it. Okay, I would have been like, because they went back as far as the Kennedys. Okay, and they went as most recently to the Obamas. Because the book was, I think it was written. I guess that was kind of who was in office when the book was written. But anyway, instead of saying, okay, this is all, we spoke to everyone who worked for the Kennedys, and this is what they said about the Kennedys, and then maybe then LBJ, and then maybe Ford, Nixon, or whatever the order of the presidents. Okay, but they didn't do it that way.
So they didn't go in chronological
They
order.
did not go in chronological order, which drove me crazy.
They were rabbit trailing it.
They were right. So basically, they'd go, oh, and one time the butler said, they were talking about LBJ's shower and how it was an ongoing deal. He could never get his shower. The sprayer or the jets on it were never strong enough, and it was this ongoing saga with the shower.
Oh my!
And they would, and that was pretty funny. It was pretty, anyway. But they would give you a little tidbit about something Jackie Kennedy said.
Okay, so very sporadic.
It was
all
sporadic,
over the place.
and then the next paragraph would be about, oh, and one time Amy Carter was out with her dog, and I'm just like, and then they go back, and here's the other thing. So it was very sporadic.
I agree.
You get
Being
it?
very OCD, I would want them to go in chronological order. Give me all the juiciest tidbits about the Kennedys. Okay,
Right.
now we're on
Exactly.
LBJ,
So 1 minute they're talking about Obama's daughters, the next minute they're talking about LBJ's shower. Then they're talking about Kennedy's death, which is of course fascinating.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it was driving me.
Put it in order.
To put it in order. It was driving me crazy. And then the other thing they did that drove me crazy. So anytime they would, which understandably, anytime they would say, okay, this is who saw this or who said this, like the butler's the one that witnessed this. Well, they would give his full name and his years of service. Well, when you're not doing it in chronological order, they might have said that butler's name 50 times.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, this is the 50th time you've had to say this butler's name and his title, and he served from 1965 to 1983. I get it. Why not? Okay, or they could have done it this way, Joy. They could have said, okay, here's Butler Smith. Here's his experiences, and did it chronological order of the staff member.
Yeah, that's true.
So it was just the whole way that it was
read
crafted.
The credentials a million
times.
My
God, I'm sorry. I was just like, okay, if y'all could rearrange the book and make some sense of it, I would have enjoyed it.
Do some sort of logical order. Yeah.
And there was so many things that you and I, if we had time, I'd sit here and tell you, and I found out this and that. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was lots of juicy tidbits.
Right.
But they didn't put it, they did it.
It was the way
they
it was
did it
written.
such a disservice. It was such a disadvantage. They could have made this such a good
Okay, what was the best piece of gossip or surprising or best? What was one of the highlights? You're like, ooh, that's awesome.
Okay, I guess the thing that interested me the most of the things was the Clintons, because naturally, being from Arkansas, we grew up with Bill and Hillary Clinton, and they talked about just how secretive they were in the White House. And one of the things that really I thought was juicy, so they have this rule that if a president or anyone in the president's immediate family invites anyone to come, whether it's a family member, a friend, a business associate, they do background checks.
Right.
And if that person has any type of criminal record, they'll have a service, like a what do you call them? Like a secret service guy to kind of shadow them, or at least accompany them.
Yeah.
Well, they said the Clintons. They said everybody they invited into the White House, they all had criminal histories. So they said they were constantly on their toes. They couldn't keep up with them because they didn't have enough people to constantly be escorting everyone they invited in the White House. They said
proud.
I know, and so that was interesting to me. Anything they said about Jacqueline Kennedy was interesting to me. Now, the woman that gave everybody fits was Nancy Reagan.
Really?
Oh, Lord, she was like perfectionist, OCD.
Really?
Like everything had to be perfect. Oh,
I
yeah,
didn't
like
know that.
for one of the estate dinners or something they were having.
Because she was a librarian, right?
I don't know.
I think she was a lot. You're talking about George Jr.'s wife, Nancy, not Barbara Bush, but
Nancy Reagan.
Oh wait, I'm thinking
You're
Bushes.
thinking of Bushes.
I'm sorry.
Think Reagan.
Nancy Reagan.
Nancy Reagan.
Yeah.
Just say no to drugs.
Did they? Yes. And did they talk about how she's into astrology and stuff? Because I read some stories where she had a medium.
Oh.
Like a what do you call it? A psychic.
You know what?
Come in and do some readings for Ronald Reagan, and I was like, you got to be kidding me.
You know what? I do think they did mention something about that. I'm not
positive. She was
positive.
real into like the supernatural. And
it did. You're right, because there was something in there that surprised me about her. But here's just one example of her being just over the top. So like she was having a special estate dinner or something for some dignitary or something, and she requested that the chef make a certain type of dessert. He brought her, I swear, it was like 16 different samples of cookies, and none of them were good enough. So she finally just designs this little. It was around Easter time. She designs this little Easter basket, and she wants like a little pastry Easter basket with cookies inside of it. And at the last minute, after he had already offered her like 12 options, I said 16, but it was like maybe a dozen options. And he ends up doing what she wants, and he's up all night with his staff just doing this because she's so demanding.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And Ronald Reagan seems so laid back.
Yes, he was.
So was he more laid back?
Yes, they said he was. He was definitely. She was kind of.
It's too bad he couldn't have kind of reined her in.
She was the one that kind of wore the pants in the family, and he was way more laid back, and like she was.
That's how he comes across.
She kind of pushed him a lot, but okay, I will say this. So I do recommend it because if you like gossip and juicy tidbits, they're in there.
Yeah.
If you're just willing to bear through all the scatteredness of how scattered everything was, it's there. But the thing that I think I enjoyed the most was just listening to how the White House is run,
Yeah, I think that'd be
how
interesting.
much staff it takes to run the house, and it's that part to me was really interesting. I was like, they named how many butlers, how many pastry chefs and cooks and maids and then valets and personal assistants and there's like a hierarchy there and it's funny because people make careers of it, of course.
Yeah.
And what's funny is the residents, they're always there, so it's kind of like they run the place, but every time a new president comes in, they're having to readjust. It's like they're
it's like a new boss.
Yeah, and they said every time they would have gotten so close and comfortable with the previous family, and it would be so sad because they would hate to see them go, and then so that not only they're having to say goodbye to what they feel like is a family, like they feel like it's truly their family.
I never thought about that. They get attached to the families,
Yes.
and they're having to say goodbye every 4 years or maybe 8 years.
And like even with like when Kennedy died, they're talking about how hard it was, and they literally, when one president leaves and another one comes in, it all literally happens within like 24 hours. So it's like a huge,
right?
And they have to be super organized. It's a huge process to move one in and one out within like 24 hours. It literally happens overnight.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty fascinating.
It is. I mean, I definitely recommend it. I just felt like they could have done a little better job
With the structure
of the story, of the book. So.
Okay. Well, the book that I just read not too long ago, listened to it. It's called Boone. It's a biography by Robert Morgan. And I'm just going to read the little summary. The story of Daniel Boone is the story of America. Its ideals, its promise, its romance, and its destiny. Best-selling, critically acclaimed author Robert Morgan reveals the complex character of a frontiersman whose heroic life was far stranger and more fascinating than the myths that surround him. This rich, authoritative biography offers a wholly new perspective on a man who has been an American icon for more than 200 years. A hero as important to American history as his more political contemporaries, George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. And it talks about how the book has extensive notes, cultural and historical background material, maps, illustrations. Of course, I did the audio version, and I will say I can't tell you the exact hours. I'm going to say it was 20 plus hours on the Audible app, and it did seem like it went on and on. So the reason I chose this book was because I always want to kind of get out of my comfort zone, and when I see a title and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I would like that. Kind of like the Climbing with Molly that we talked about, how, we just kind of stepped out of our comfort zone, read a book about rock climbing, and it led to those really cool documentaries you watch. So I thought, okay, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone. I'm going to read about this frontiersman. I don't know anything about Daniel Boone, hardly anything at all. And I'm glad I read it. But I will say it's one of those that just seemed that it went on and on and on. And he told, man, it's like he left no stone unturned. I mean, it started with his ancestors and went all the way through their lives, and then, of course, through Daniel's Boone life, and then even, like, some of his kids. And it was interesting, and I learned so much. It's just be prepared for a time investment. Whether you read it or listen to it, it's long.
So you have to really want to know about him to read the book,
yes,
it sounds like.
There was so much in there that I was clueless. I did not realize. I knew he was a frontiersman. I knew he was a big-time hunter, like he was known for. That was his passion in life, was hunting. And he...
I have to reveal some ignorance on my part about Daniel Boone. So, you just mentioned in that summary that you read that his contemporaries were George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. I honestly thought that he lived more in the later 1800s. You know what I'm saying? I actually thought he was like the next generation after George Washington, but he actually lived during the time of the Revolutionary War.
Yes.
Oh, that's
yes.
Okay, I did not know that.
That's what I didn't understand either. And what's crazy is he spent his whole life. He actually was even captured by Indians. Okay, so here he is. He's one of the main key people credited for opening the Oh my gosh, I've read this a million times in the book, and here I am drawing a blank. I'm so tired, I can't think. But he opened this trail that helped people get into Kentucky.
Yeah.
Like, he's the main trailblazer, you know. And what's ironic, and I think this
That's
is one
funny.
of the...
I can't think of the name of it either.
Think of
It's
the name of
famous.
it.
It's
Yes,
extremely
the
famous.
Appalachian Trail. I don't know. I feel stupid now because I've read it a million times and I can't think the name of it. But anyway, what's ironic is he is one of the key people responsible for, you know, making these trails and making it accessible where people could get into Kentucky.
So he blazed.
Literally blazed the trail. But as more and more people came in, the animals started to leave, and the hunting started getting worse and worse. And that was his passion, was hunting. And so the one thing that he loved, he was one of the causes of why it went away. And he loved, according to this book, he admired the Indians. He was even captured by them and lived among them for, I think it was 2 years. And so he was very familiar with the Indian ways. He even learned some of their languages. And there's just too much in the book to go through every story, but there are some fascinating stories. And how he survived for as long as he did without dying. I mean, he came near death so many times. But his story is fascinating. I think it's worth reading if you don't mind investing the time. And I did learn a lot about our country just by reading about his life.
Oh, really?
And how things
Okay.
work. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you read it because when I saw that you were reading it, I thought, ooh, that looks really interesting. But I thought I'll let her read it first and tell me if it's worth the time.
I'll say it just, in your case, I might just give you the highlights someday.
Oh, okay.
Because right now, I don't know why I'm so tired right now, and I'm having trouble thinking straight right now. Maybe it's because it's like our third podcast of the night, and we
I'm
both
tired
worked
too,
all
I
day.
know.
And I think if I was more alert and had had more sleep, I could really get into some of the stories and tell you about some of the stories. But yeah, if you're interested in mountain men and the founding fathers and like people who really made a difference in our country, he's portrayed as a really good guy. He's portrayed as a Christian type man,
Okay.
even though he didn't like go to church all the time and things like that. They said when he went on these trips, he always carried his Bible with him. That was one of his favorite things to read, was the Bible.
Oh.
He always made sure he treated people right. He never cheated even though many people cheated him and took advantage of his kindness many times. He never took advantage of anyone, and he always made sure he paid his debts, and he always treated people kind of like the golden rule. He always made sure he treated people how he'd want to be treated. And I will say, after reading this book, I have great respect for him.
Really?
His courage, he's a man of great courage. Sounds like he was a man of great faith and very respectable, and I have a lot of respect for him after reading this book.
Okay.
So,
The Cumberland Gap.
yes,
Okay.
that's
yeah.
it. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, it just says the Cumberland Gap, nature's passage through the Cumberland Mountains between Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's cool how in the book they talk about how out of all the lands they, had been around and all the lands people had surveyed and seen, Kentucky was considered like the gem. I mean, it was considered like, key prime farmland and hunting. So Kentucky was like the real, like, considered,
Someday, I'd like to mention this. We have a brother-in-law named Mark Humby, and he loves any type of story about mountain men. And I know he's really I think he's read a lot about Daniel Boone, and he knows a lot about Daniel Boone. But someday maybe we could actually have Mark on.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'd want to be on here or not. He might. I don't know. And just have him discuss Daniel Boone. I think it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, and he also recommended books to read books. Is it Jeremiah Johnson? Was he one of the main mountain
Yeah,
men?
he mentioned this guy's name. And
Was that it? Jeremiah
I don't remember.
Johnson? I can't either.
And we all looked at him like, who are you talking about? And he was laughing like, y'all don't know who
Yeah,
that
he was
is?
laughing because
And-
we'd never heard of this
Yeah,
guy.
but
He's
nobody in
one
the
of
room had ever heard of him.
He's one of the most famous mountain men, I guess.
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
United
But
States.
Mark would be a really good source. I think a really good. He'd be a really good person to have on to discuss Daniel Boone. If we
discuss.
ever decide we want to go in depth and actually really discuss one of his books.
Definitely.
Yeah. So.
Okay, well, I guess to recap it all, I did enjoy reading the Daniel Boone biography by Robert Morgan. I felt like it was super, super long, but I learned a lot about our country, and I have great respect now for Daniel Boone.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I recommend The Residence. I recommend The Residence. It is 10 hours and 16 minutes long on Audible. But you know what? This would be one of those books that just listen to it when you get bored, if you're on the treadmill or you're out walking or something. It's good to pass the time with.
Okay. Sounds good. Yep. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on
Twin Talk.